Look at your hands, soft, flat, vulnerable. No claws, no thick pads of callus, no natural weapon of any kind, just skin wrapped over bone. A chimpanzee's hands are nothing like yours, rougher, stronger, built for gripping and climbing, and surviving in a world that punishes weakness. Yet you and a chimpanzee share nearly 99% of your DNA. So what happened to you? Why do you look so unready? The real answer is far stranger than you think. What if the secret to everything that makes you human, your curiosity, your creativity, your ability to love and imagine and invent, is the result of a biological strategy that deliberately froze your development in time? What if nature, somewhere along the line, decided the best version of a human being was one that never fully grew up? This is not a metaphor. This is biology. The scientific term is neoteny. It comes from the Greek words for youth and to stretch, and it describes one of the most radical evolutionary strategies ever discovered in the natural history of life on Earth. Neoteny is the retention of juvenile traits into adulthood. It means that your flat face, your large rounded skull, your small jaw, your relatively hairless body, your proportionally enormous brain, your curiosity, your capacity for play, your long years of dependence on other people, these are not signs of evolutionary progress towards something harder and fiercer. They are signs that somewhere in your ancestral past, evolution pressed pause. It kept the child. And in doing so, it built you. In 1977, the paleontologist and evolutionary biologist Stephen Jay Gould published a landmark work called Ontogeny and Phylogeny. In it, he laid out the evidence that humans are, compared to our closest primate relatives, developmentally slowed down. We grow more slowly, we mature more slowly, we spend more of our lives in a state that other animals pass through quickly and leave behind. Gould argued that this delay was not a flaw in our design, it was the engine of human uniqueness. The thing that set us apart from every other creature on the planet was not that we grew up faster or stronger, it was that we grew up slower and never stopped wondering. Think about a chimpanzee infant. A baby chimpanzee looks, in many ways, startlingly like a human child. Large forehead, big eyes, flat face, playful, curious, emotionally expressive. It stares, it reaches, it explores everything it can touch. Then it grows up. Within a few years, the chimp's face lengthens, the brow ridge thickens, the jaw protrudes, the curious, open quality dims into something more efficient, more territorial, more closed. The adult chimpanzee is powerful and capable, but it is no longer that endlessly wondering infant. It has left that behind. Now look at an adult human. The large forehead is still there, the big eyes are still there, the relatively flat face, the curiosity, the play, the openness to other minds, other ideas, other worlds. You kept all of it. You are, in the most literal biological sense, the primate that grew up while staying young. The anthropologist Ashley Montagu spent decades studying this phenomenon and came to a striking conclusion. He argued in his 1989 book, Growing Young, that neoteny is not just a feature of human anatomy. It is the organizing principle of what makes us human at all. Our need for warmth, our capacity for wonder, our instinct to learn by watching others, our hunger to play long past the age when other animals have stopped. These are behaviors that most mammals exhibit only in infancy. You kept them for a lifetime. Montagu believed this was not a weakness to be overcome. It was your greatest strength, hiding in plain sight, and the data supports him. Of all the mammals on Earth, you spend the longest proportion of your lifespan in a state of developmental incompleteness. A horse is walking within hours of birth. A deer is running within days. A chimpanzee is largely independent within 4 or 5 years. You cannot feed yourself reliably until age 7 or 8. You cannot regulate your own emotions without consistent external support until well into your teens. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for judgment, long-term planning, and impulse control, does not fully mature until you are roughly 25 years old. 25 years. That is an astonishing biological fact. It means that you were not, in the most literal neurological sense, a fully grown adult until a quarter century had passed. That is an extraordinarily long and expensive investment of time and resources. Why would evolution do that? Why would any species allow its young to remain so dependent for so long, when dependency is dangerous, when the world does not wait? The answer is the brain. Your brain is doing something no other animal's brain does at scale. It is not arriving pre-programmed, it is arriving as an open system, a blank architecture, ready to absorb whatever the world around it contains. Language, culture, tools, art, religion, mathematics, social rules, stories, moral codes, all of it can be loaded into you from the outside. Other animals' brains are largely fixed at birth. They know what they need to know, and the room for new input closes early. Yours does not. Yours is a system specifically designed to be written on by experience. But to stay writable, to stay plastic and open, it needs time. It needs the long years of protected childhood that only a neoteny species can afford to give. The developmental psychologist David Bjorklund has written extensively on this point, arguing that the extended immaturity of human children is not a bug in our biology, but a core feature, possibly the core feature. Children's brains, he explains, are not simply smaller adult brains running slower. They work differently. They are architecturally built for absorption, for play, for trial and error without fatal consequence. The long window of human childhood is, in his view, a protected laboratory, a space where the brain can test, fail, revise, and learn everything it needs to learn before it has to survive on its own. And here is the twist that reframes everything. The same traits that make a human child so powerful, the openness, the imitation, the dependency on others, the obsessive curiosity about how things work, are the traits that, thanks to neoteny, you never fully surrender. Your brain remains more plastic, more changeable, more open to new input for longer than any other animals on the planet. Well into adulthood, well into old age, the human brain retains a capacity for new learning that other animals' brains close off early and completely. You are not just a mammal that grew up slowly. You are a mammal that built an entire civilization out of the refusal to fully close. Think about what curiosity actually is. In most animals, curiosity is a juvenile behavior. Kittens explore, puppies investigate, young crows poke at new objects. Adult animals of most species become cautious, fixed, territorial. They know what they need to know, and they stop reaching for more. But you, the neoteny primate, never fully cross that threshold. You wake up at 40 years old and want to understand how black holes form. You are 60 and decide to learn a new language. You have grandchildren, and you still want to know what happens after you die. This is not sentiment. This is not stubbornness. This is neoteny expressing itself through wonder. Now turn this on its head. If neoteny made you curious, creative, and plastic, it also made you fragile, dependent, prone to anxiety and attachment and grief in ways that most animals are not. An open mind is a powerful mind, but an open mind is also a mind that can be deeply hurt by what gets in. The same architecture that allows you to absorb language and empathy and moral reasoning also allows you to absorb trauma and shame and the cruelest words another person can say to you in a moment of anger. You are not accidentally sensitive. You are structurally sensitive. You were built this way, on purpose, because staying open was more valuable than staying armored. And here is what no one tells you about that. Every society that has ever existed has had to answer the same impossible question. How do you protect an open mind long enough for it to become something worth protecting? The answer was almost always the same. You surround it. You build walls made of story and ritual, and shared belief and consistent care. You create childhood as a cultural container, a protected space where the open mind can grow without being destroyed by the full weight of what waits outside. From the earliest cave-dwelling societies to the neighborhoods where you grew up, every human culture is at its core an attempt to keep the neoteny child safe long enough to become a capable adult. Which means the village, the tribe, the family, these were never optional. They were structural requirements written into your biology. The anthropologist Sarah Blafer-Hrdy, in her research on cooperative child-rearing and human evolution, found that humans are unique among the great apes in how they raise their young, not just two parents, whole networks, grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, unrelated members of the group who were not the biological parents but who invested in the child's survival anyway. She called these allomothers and argued that without them, the long, vulnerable, neoteny human childhood would have been biologically impossible to survive. The human species needed a village not as a cultural preference but as an evolutionary necessity. You were designed to need other people. That design was not a failure of independence. It was the price of everything you became. So when you feel like you cannot do it alone, that is not weakness. That is the ancient evolutionary truth of your body finally speaking clearly. Now bring this all the way back to today. You live in a world that is accelerating faster than any world your ancestors were ever built to navigate. New technologies emerging faster than cultures can absorb them. New threats, new possibilities, new languages, visual and digital and social, appearing every decade. Most animals, creatures with closed, efficient adult brains, would be paralyzed. But you have neoteny. You have the brain that was never designed to stop learning. The world changes, and you adapt. You fail, and you update. You lose, and you find a new way. This is not resilience as a personality trait. This is neoteny as a survival strategy still running, right now, in every mind that refuses to stop being curious. The child inside you is not something you were supposed to grow out of. It is the most sophisticated evolutionary tool your species ever developed. It is the engine of every language ever learned, every song ever written, every question ever asked about stars and gods and what the future might hold. It is why you are here. It is why any of this exists at all. Look at your hands again. Soft, flat, vulnerable, no claws, no armor, no weapon built into the bone. And perfectly, impossibly designed to hold everything the world still has to teach you.